Not everyone is getting the same result out of the Wim Hof method breathing. In this video I explain how I lifted this breathwork to a whole other level. While for some people the breathwork can be life-changing, for others this breathwork doesn't do much. Of course, there is no universal law for it to work on everybody, and there are also technical mistakes one can make that I have covered in other videos, so be sure to check them out as well. Before we start, it's really important to understand that the Wim Hof method should never be done in or near water, so please practice this breathing responsibly. The Wim Hof method breathing consists of 30 to 40 fast-paced breaths where you focus on vigorous inhalations and relaxed passive exhalations. After that, you hold your breath after an exhalation for as long as you comfortably can, up to 2 or even 3 minutes. Keep in mind that the breath hold time doesn't really matter. After the breath hold, you follow up with a so-called recovery breath, where you inhale fully and hold the breath with full lungs for 10 to 15 seconds. Then repeat this for 3 to 4 rounds. So this is the basic Wim Hof method breathing protocol. But the problem with this is that it's a rigid structure. It's like playing an instrument just by notes, without putting your soul into the music, or practicing the forms and katas of traditional martial arts without a fighting spirit. What is missing is the soul, or as the Upanishads say, the Atman, the vital breath of life, the universal self. So one important aspect to understand is that the Wim Hof breathing, or any other breathwork method, stems from our normal breathing, your core of being. But if you're not aware of your normal breathing and yourself, how can you expect to suddenly jump to an effective, deliberate breathing protocol with a transformative effect? It's like finding your path without knowing where you are. So taking the time to be present and feel your regular breathing pattern can make a huge difference when you transition into the actual Wim Hof method breathing protocol. By getting aware of our regular breathing, we not only anchor our mind to the present, but also sharpen our sensation of the subtle movements of our breathing, and therefore be able to detect and release blockages and excessive tension, making the breathing process easier to control. It's not only ancient practices like martial arts and yoga that attribute the breath as a vital point to their practices. Neuroscience and physiology uncovered a lot about our breathing mechanism and the connection to our heart rate variability and autonomic nervous system, providing a gateway to influence our health, emotional state, and stress response. When we inhale, our diaphragm contracts and pulls down toward our pelvic floor. This pull creates an underpressure in our lungs, which draws in air. When we exhale, we relax our diaphragm, which ascends back to its natural position, pushing the air out of our lungs. And there's a fascinating hidden neurological connection between our breathing, heart, and neurological arousal state, meaning how alert we are. When we inhale, our diaphragm descends and creates more space around our chest, which makes our heart a little bit bigger because there's less surrounding pressure from the neighboring organs. And when there's more volume, the blood flow speed through the heart decreases. In our heart, we have receptors that detect the speed of blood flow that runs through the sinoatrial node. So these receptors detect that the speed is slowing down and sends a signal to our brain to increase the heart rate. When we exhale, the opposite effect happens. The diaphragm moves back up, putting pressure on the heart, and blood flow speed increases, like you squeeze a lemon. Receptors in the heart send a signal to our brain to decrease the heart rate. And this regulation happens through our autonomic nervous system by engaging our fight and flight response or our rest and recovery system, or in nerdy terms, engage our sympathetic nervous system or our parasympathetic nervous system. So by focusing on vigorous inhalations and shorter exhalations, like the deep breathing part of the Wim Hof method, we continuously engage our fight and flight response, which raises our neurological arousal state and makes us more alert. If done too vigorously, it potentially makes us hyper-aroused, which can lead to anxiety and panic. And people have experienced that doing the Wim Hof method. By exhaling and then holding our breath where the diaphragm is relaxed and putting pressure on our heart, our rest and recovery mode sets in to decrease the heart rate, making us more calm and relaxed, and sometimes making us even fall asleep. So with the Wim Hof method breathwork, we engage both sides of the neurological arousal spectrum. And by doing so, we can get into this highly energized, focused, yet calm and peaceful state of mind, the best of both worlds. But having this moment at the beginning where we get aware of our natural breathing, the sensation of it, and acknowledge our presence, we can gradually steer our neurological arousal up to the point where we want it by mindfully increasing the depth and speed of our inhalations, while also having the awareness to decrease the vigorousness and when we get too aroused. So I like to take at least 5 minutes of breath awareness before starting the actual breathwork protocol. In art, the space between objects or elements, often referred as negative space, plays a crucial role in composition and perception. It's not just the absence of content, but a form of visual balance that can emphasize the importance of subjects, create harmony and lead the viewer's eye through a piece. The Japanese concept of ma encapsulates this beautifully, emphasizing the importance of the interval between two structural parts. It's seen not as empty space, but as a place full of potential for aesthetics and emotional experience. When we look at today's culture, the opposite of ma seems to be the baseline of our daily lives, where every gap must be filled with either something productive or entertaining. And this is the theme that also happens to so many Wim Hof method practitioners. Many practitioners practice the breathwork to fill a gap, like a piece of puzzle to a picture that seems incomplete. So we want to feel better, be healthier, or feel more motivated. And don't get me wrong, these are all valid reasons to practice breathwork. Let us also make sure that we appreciate the empty spaces for discovering ourselves. If you look at the Wim Hof breathing protocol, we have a beginning, an end, and the breath holds that can also serve as empty spaces. These empty spaces serve as an opportunity to do more than try to hold a new breath hold record, or as a mere starting and end point of our practice. They are gateways to uncover deeper layers of ourselves. But how exactly do we do that? The first thing to do is to change the perspective on these empty spaces. This is also the reason I gave this whole intro about ma and empty spaces in the first place. The reason why we always want to be doing something or want to be entertained is that most of us hate to be bored. Being left to our own can be uncomfortable. Therefore, we must practice this. We must turn our eyes inward to appreciate these empty spaces, even though they can be boring or uncomfortable at times. In the beginning, I was talking about breath awareness, and this already is a form of presence where we embrace the stillness of doing nothing and simply observe our breath. And this simple act can already change the whole experience with the breathwork practice. But there are more ways to engage with these empty spaces. Observing ourselves can include becoming aware of our thoughts, emotions, and bodily sensations, and countless subcategories. And we usually have always kind of a presence of these forms of our consciousness, but the question is, how aware are we of these? When we introduce the observation of these mindfulness practices, we changed the Wim Hof breathwork from a simple routine where the only goal was to feel good and maybe break a new breath hold record. We changed that to an ongoing journey of self-discovery. This is very similar to a meditation practice, with the exception that breathwork has this unique way of opening our consciousness and making us more receptive to discovering deeper layers of ourselves. So the next time you do the Wim Hof method breathing, take your time to get aware of your breathing and your mental and energetic state before you start with the actual breathwork protocol. Additionally, practice observing the qualities and texture of your consciousness during the breath hold phases and or after the breathwork protocol. I would recommend forming an intention before you start your practice of what you want to focus on, because there's just so much. Do you want to observe the sensation of your body, or do you want to focus on your thoughts or emotional state? Sometimes it's helpful to do a guided breathwork session where somebody guides you through the whole process. You will find some guided breathwork videos on this channel with non-esoteric, practical and down-to-earth instructions. I hope this video helps to elevate your Wim Hof method breathing to the next level. If you liked this video, you might also like this video here, how Andrew Huberman changed my perspective on the Wim Hof method and breathwork.